Welcome back to the Human First CEO series on LinkedIn Live. My name is Nick Maida, and I'm the CEO of Gainsight. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by Jen Tejada, CEO of PagerDuty, a CEO that I respect so much, both for the amazing business that Jen and her team have built, but also by the way that they run their business and run their team. So welcome, Jen. Oh, I think. Oh, apologies just for 1 second for the audience. We have a little bit of a audio issue.
Hi, Nick.
Jen's
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, great. Awesome. There you go. Now we've proven that this is live. There you go. This is real live stuff. So welcome, Jen. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. And the admiration is mutual. We are huge fans of you and Gainsight, and thrilled to be here with you today.
That's awesome. Well, this conversation is called Human First CEOs. And the idea is that we want to bring all of us want to bring our whole selves to work every day. And we want to feel like we could be our true authentic selves, and companies can play a role in that. So before we talk about PagerDuty and how you're doing that at work, I'd love to get to know Jen Tejada, the human being. So right now we are all in quarantine and it's challenging, but I think one of the things that keeps us going is that image of what we're going to do after quarantine is lifted. So what is that thing you're striving for in 2021 or 2022 or whatever it is?
Well, there's two things. One, I have terrible wanderlust. I'm used to traveling. I like to see different parts of the world. So I'm excited to get on a plane and leave the US and go to Europe, go to Asia, see my family who I've not been able to see for many months now. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law are both in Australia. And then we have close family that's in Europe as well. So getting on a plane to, see different parts of the world is number one. And for me, number two, I'd love to throw a big party and just hug everybody that I care about. I'm an extreme extrovert, and not being able to connect with the people I'm close to and not be able to sort of celebrate and feed people, that's been hard for me. So I'm going to have a big party when it's safe to do so.
I hear you.
How about you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel the same way about the big party. I know it's not going to be like that, where it's not going to be one day and everything is lifted. It's going to be this gradual process. But in my mind, I have this image of all of us on the streets, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody playing, and we're all dancing together.
A giant flash mob.
Oh, it'd be amazing. But in lieu of that, I think the thing I would really love to do is I love theater, I love Broadway, and I'd love to go to New York for a week. And I love New York, and just see shows every single day with my daughter, my wife, and just because all the theaters are all shut down, as we know, and that industry has been hit pretty hard. So excited for it to come back sometime.
Well, we'll have to meet and take our kids to see a show together. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be so fun. So this conversation is all about how we can build businesses that drive success for our shareholders, but also for all the other stakeholders, our community, our teammates, our customers. And so I want to start with the community. I really think PagerDuty has been a role model for being a company that understands that you live in a broader community. And for folks that don't know, PagerDuty is a digital operations platform that thousands of companies, including Gainsight, rely on to keep their applications and websites running using automation and AI. But given the context of what your company does at the beginning of COVID, I think you looked out to the community and said, you can help by basically providing free technology to some of these distributed teams trying to work better together. Talk about how you thought about that at the beginning of COVID.
Well, early in COVID, there was so much uncertainty. I mean, I remember being in a team meeting and the team saying, well, we just need to get through the next couple of weeks and then things will be back to normal. We really had no idea the sustainability of this pandemic and how it might dramatically change the way we live, work, and learn. And that's certainly been the case. And so our first goal was to just get our product in the hands of people who needed it. And we know there are many use cases for PagerDuty, not the least of which we have healthcare customers that use PagerDuty to roster and get the right professionals into the right situations in the moments that matter. So making sure healthcare had access to the platform and had services to help them get up and running quickly was kind of job one. We've since sort of pivoted to having a free offering entirely, which is new to PagerDuty, but really it's about reducing the friction and making it easy for distributed teams to leverage PagerDuty to detect unpredictable work or issues, orchestrate that work to the right people in the right moments, and then resolve those challenges with more and more AI and automation as they go. So this is really just about creating access. And this is so much about who we are, whether it's creating access to underrepresented people who want to have careers in the tech industry, or unleashing people from their laptops by ensuring they can run an entire incident from a smart handheld device. All of those things have been really important to us. And this was sort of one small way that we could hopefully make an impact.
Well, I love that. You're making an impact with your technology, and you're also making an impact with your voice, and both your personal voice and your company's voice. And you talked about underrepresented people in technology. We both know that that's just a massive ongoing problem for all society, but specifically in the tech industry. There are a couple of things that I saw you got involved in. You're a founding pledge member of the Board Challenge to improve representation of Black directors in corporate boardrooms. And you also joined the Justice Collective to encourage vendors to invest in diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity. Talk a little bit about how PagerDuty navigates some of these important issues.
Well, I mean, I'd start by saying these are issues that have been issues for far too long. And we're not changing and evolving fast enough. And what I know from leading businesses for several decades is that transformational change is hard and you're never done. And people will test your conviction over and over again as a leader, and you'll have to continue to repeat yourself about what's important and how we're going to be part of driving that change, even as people question you and people worry about the risks that you may be taking, et cetera. But if you look at our business holistically, the community we serve is richly diverse. It's not just developers. It's not just white privileged people. I mean, there's a rich tapestry of diversity, ethnic, lifestyle, gender, you name it, location, business, use case, et cetera. And so for us not to mirror that back means that we won't see the market through the lens of our customers. And that would be a business shortcoming that I think any business leader or board would find unacceptable. So first thing is, how do we reflect the community that we serve, and how do we give them the products and services in a way that they deserve? That starts by looking at all your stakeholders, not just your customers, not just your investors, but also the communities that you live and work in. And for us, it's been about creating a just, equitable, inclusive culture. And frankly, I think that culture is becoming a competitive advantage for us because it's something we've been working at even since before I got to PagerDuty 4 years ago. It was a very open and transparent community. Since I've been at PagerDuty, we've become increasingly more diverse, and we actually have published our first annual report sharing some of our diversity metrics to both hold ourselves accountable, but also demonstrate to our peers and others that this is something that we're not only serious about, but we want to share what we've learned to maybe help them change faster, move faster. With the Justice Collective and the pledge that we took around making sure that we have Black representation on our board within the next 12 months, those just sort of felt like no-brainers to me because, again, it's a way we can leverage our voice and our platform to, one, support our vendors in leveraging more diverse and inclusive practices and creating some accountability, but also helping them learn faster, helping them transition faster and change faster. Having representation on our board does many positive things for our business. It helps our new employees, people of color, have a mentor and a leader they can look up to and resonate with. It helps us see, again, the market and the community through another diverse lens, and that's diverse in terms of both experience as well as background. And I think it just builds a stronger board overall. So to me, these were not hard decisions, just like standing with the Black community around Black Lives Matter and some of the social reckoning that we've seen. Like, it was not an option for me to not be vocal and come out early and say, this is really important to us. We not only stand with the Black community, we grieve with them, but we're going to try and leave the world in a better position than it was when we got here.
Well, I love that. And, one thing I could say from just personal experience is when companies like PagerDuty do that, it just creates a role model for other companies. At Gainsight, we look at a lot of what you do and we say, how do we do that? How do we do it in our own authentic way? And you really do have an impact beyond your four walls of your company to a lot of other companies out there. I know that on the internet, there's like a counter argument, which is, hey, companies should just focus on the bottom line and activism should be outside of companies and justice, and that's not the company's job. And I'm probably oversimplifying it, but they're definitely not everyone believes the same that maybe you and I do. when people bring that up, what do you say to folks like that?
Well, absolutely. Everybody has a right to their own opinion, but I believe very strongly that creating an inclusive and diverse business that takes a position around social issues and works to address some of these social issues to move the whole community forward together faster and better. One, attracts more diverse candidates, which means you get better talent, greater access to talent. But two, actually supports better businesses and long-term business growth. So I just don't buy it that you can say to a person, leave your personal feelings about what's going on in the environment and society around you at home and come to work and do your job. That would have been like someone telling me in the 90s, like, leave your femininity at home and come assimilate to the male, environment that you work in. And I just don't think that's okay. And I don't think you bring out the best in someone when you ask them to turn a part of themselves off and, play a certain role or assimilate to a certain mold in the workplace.
I love that. And yeah, business has been historically, for a lot of people, especially underrepresented people, it's been dehumanizing. You had to put on a different face at work, and that takes away your creativity. It takes away your energy, makes you feel less belonging. And I think we both believe we can do better. So
100%.
One way we can all do better, and it's so lucky we have such a privilege in America to be able to do better, is voice our expression in elections, right? And putting aside what parties people vote for, there's an opportunity for all of us to be more engaged. And I've seen PagerDuty's trying to drive some engagement from your employees. I'm really interested in that because it's very timely.
Yes, well, we believe that getting out the vote and making sure every single voice is heard is so election, but in local elections, because your local politicians can make decisions that can impact your life and the way you work, et cetera. And so when we think about how we either support organizations that are working to get the vote out by providing grants through PagerDuty.org, which we announced recently at Summit, that's important, but also giving employees time to, we give our employees time off to vote. We give them time off to work the polls. We give them volunteer time off if they want to peacefully demonstrate. You're actually scaling your impact and your reach by, allowing employees to participate in transforming the nation through their vote. And I feel really uncomfortable with the inequality that potentially exists around people having access to the polls, people having access to exercise their feelings and their opinions. And so I want to make sure that we try and support organizations that are leveling the playing field there.
I love that. Yeah, companies do have a big role. And, the small things you're doing, you get a few more people to vote. Elections are very close. And like you said, it's not just the big national ones. So switching gears a little bit. So we talked about the community, which is really important. Let's talk about your team. And, love to start with something you already talked about, which is, diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging has always been important to PagerDuty and to you personally. You've made a big impact. That's clear. I'm sure you have a lot more to go. I'm sure you meet a lot of CEOs who say, yeah, that's great, but I don't have the pipeline. It's really hard. I don't know where to start. I don't know what the long list of excuses you've heard is. We can compare a list of excuses.
It's long, but you have to buy me a drink. We can talk about it when we're talking.
So what are when we get into these conversations with other CEOs, behind closed doors, what do we say to people that have their list of excuses and therefore aren't doing anything?
Yeah, look, sometimes I think excuses are just a shield for discomfort or I don't know how to do this. And so I think part of my role as a CEO is to help educate others in best practices that have worked for us. If we're able to do something more effectively than another company, then it's my responsibility to try and open source that and share it so that, again, we all move together, move forward faster. I don't think it's a pipeline issue. And I also would say that as a CEO, we're kind of responsible for the pipeline. If it was a pipeline issue, if that's what you truly believe, then what are you doing to change the pipeline within your organization, within education, in your community? You can have an impact one way or the other. But my parents used to say, nothing worth doing is easy. And sometimes you have to work harder to make sure that you're creating access to diverse communities to participate in the recruiting process, right? And so it starts by insisting that your final slate is diverse, and not just one diverse person out of 4, but that there's equality and equitability on that panel. Making sure that people interviewing that panel are not only diverse and there's representation, but they're also trained to manage their biases. They're trained to really look at each candidate for each candidate's capabilities and experiences, behaviors, and backgrounds. And, Verna Myers spoke recently at Summit for us. She is the head of inclusion strategy at Netflix, and she was just incredible. Mm-hmm. She talked about the 4 C's in approaching inclusion and diversity. Curiosity, which I think is a great way to say, be open to learning, like have a growth mindset. Compassion, like put yourself in the shoes of an underrepresented person that maybe doesn't have the network, doesn't have the access, didn't go to the college that you went to, isn't a triple degreed engineer. Consciousness, like be self-aware about your own biases, your own gaps, your own shortcomings, and seek first to understand. And then courage, like be willing to take a risk, because some of what you have to do to create an inclusive and diverse environment may not be popular, right? And then the last thing I would say, and I'm by no means an expert, and when we talk about these things, it's not because we think we're getting it all right. It's just if there's anything that we learned that we can share that can help somebody else move forward, we want to do that. And likewise, we're going to continue to growth hack this issue and learn from others, learn from you, Nick, and what your team's done at Gainsight. You've done some incredible things, particularly across customer experience and creating more equality just in that community. And you have such a huge voice and presence in that community. I really miss Pulse. When can we go back?
I know, seriously.
But I think it's not to say we know it all. It's just to say that, like, here's what we've learned and here are things we're trying, and that the work is never done. It's not like, do you ever sit back in any other part of your business and say, well, nailed it, we're not going to try and improve it any further? Like, no, you got to keep pushing.
I love that. It's funny. I say the same thing to people, like when they say, oh, it's really hard. I'm like, isn't product really hard? Isn't sales really hard? And by the way, if you're a CEO and you go to your board and you're like, yeah, we can't really do sales because it's a pipeline issue.
Exactly.
The board will find another CEO really quickly, right? And I think that's very well said. The other thing that is very important, I think, for both of us is to have a human approach to our teams. You talk about bringing your whole self to work, and you're just trying to break that wall between the CEO and the company. You've done this thing being a CEO twice now. I've done it twice as well. How has your style changed in terms of like how you try to connect with your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's really changed a lot, my first time as a CEO, I felt like I was under a lot of pressure to have the answer. And I realized that, like, I'm surrounded by brilliant people. My job is to ask the right questions and, help them find the best possible answers. So, being a learn-it-all versus know-it-all has been, I think, an important shift. Also, like, really thinking about what are the things that only the CEO can do, and continuing to delegate and create opportunities for my team to pick up more big, chunky, strategic, scary problems and focus on the things that, I as the CEO uniquely have to do. Like, for instance, I have to talk to investors, but I don't have to do all the talking. My CFO is doing a lot of that. I can spend time with customers, but I can also coach and role model and have our CRO drive a lot of that activity. Even, we get a lot of inbound requests for media and such. And I, more frequently than not, am offering up other executives to sort of stand in the spotlight and share their perspective, because my perspective is got to be boring to people at this point in time. I mean, like, I'm so sick of myself. I don't know what unique thing I have to say. But when you asked me about my team, one of the things I noticed just seeing my reflection on the monitor here was that I smiled. And one thing that hasn't changed is I love what I do. I think if you're a CEO and you're leading people, you have to love developing people. You have to love the search for talent. You have to love stitching together the chemistry and the complement of different people in your team. And you've got to thrive under pressure when problems arise, when the team's not gelling, when you're not aligning around a strategy effectively, when everybody's not moving together in the same direction. You've got to make it safe to have like a big, scary conflict or argument and put it on the table and work through it. And so those kinds of challenges are still fun for me. And when it's not fun anymore, that's when I'm going to pack it up and, I don't know, become an investor or something.
There you go. That's the future retirement path. I I would say that really resonates with me. I mean, I think we're similar where the people energize me. And I do know there's some CEOs I talk to who are like, oh, I have to deal with all the people stuff. And I'm like, well, for me, that's the job. It's a human job. Right. I think that's, yeah.
I think that's great. And I'm so jealous because you're so good at rapping and like, I want to be able to do carpool karaoke someday, but I don't think I have quite the native talent to make that happen. But it really shows when a CEO like you, Nick, demonstrates your care and your interest in the people around you, and not just your enthusiasm and your passion, because that you just radiate enthusiasm and passion. But the way you demonstrate care for your people, it goes beyond servant leadership. And I think it sort of resonates or radiates like true partnership. And people want to work for people who will partner with them. You know, people don't want to work for someone. They want to work with someone. And I feel like I'm always trying to adjust because I can be very demanding. I can be very prescriptive if I need to be. I can also be very democratic and allow people to sort of come together on their own with an answer when they're just saying, just tell me what to do, you know? Knowing when to flex which of those muscles is nuanced and something that a skill I'm still honing.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I think constantly evolving your own skill set is probably the biggest learning. So, switching gears to my third topic, my favorite topic, which is our customers, right? All of your customers, my customers. Obviously, that's something I'm kind of contractually obligated to talk about every time I do one of these. There's something I saw you talk about, which I thought was really interesting. You talked about, everyone talks about product market fit. You talked about solution problem fit and how that's a part of customer empathy. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. And, I just first want to thank Gainsight because you've been a terrific customer and also a terrific partner to us in our customer success team. So, these partnerships go so much further beyond being vendors, right? Because we've traded a lot of ideas as CEOs. Our teams have mentored each other on different things. We've talked about recruiting. You've helped us find talent. I mean, I think, when it comes to customers, you really have to look at them through the lens of partnership and trying to understand like what makes a vendor a partner to a customer. What are they really looking for? Because I think there's a lot of disappointing vendor relationships out there. And with our customers, one of the things that I see is we solve these problems that tend to be unpredictable. They come at you at the worst time. They tend to be cross-functional, even though the platforms are very distributed that different teams use within an organization. They tend to be time sensitive. Your mobile app is down. Your web app where all your revenue is coming in is down. The customer experience is being broken. You need to fix this quickly. They tend to be mission critical. So our customers are working in our platform under personal pressure, when it's a business imperative and under time pressure. And that to me means that when we're looking at product opportunities, we better be solving a burning problem, a big high value problem, because otherwise it's just not going to get the attention of our customers. And I think in the tech industry, you always run the risk of going down a path of building really cool technology, really cool feature set, but can you apply it to a really important problem? It has to start from the outside in. It has to start from the user, the world that they live in, their incentives, their goals, what makes them a winner and a hero on a day, what makes them, a loser or having a really terrible day, and how do you play a role in the former, not the latter. And so that's why I think solution to problem fit is so important, because you can take an application and shove it into the market and it's cool for a while. But if it's technology looking for a problem to solve, you're not going to win. And so that's why I think solution to problem fit is so important. It also forces teams to put themselves in the shoes of their users, not just the economic buyer. And PagerDuty, as you know, tends to start in the developer community with a single person or a team, and it grows virally across teams. And that's where our champions live, as opposed to we sell it to a really senior person in an organization and they mandate it across an organization. We like that viral buy-in, that voting with your feet or the swipe of your credit card or your login or whatever the case may be. And so the user continues to be very important to us. If you don't understand their problems, you're not going to be successful. And I'm sure that is true for you too, because you and I have discussed some of my problems before.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I want the audience to take away from what you said, there's so much wisdom in that. But there's one thing I heard, which was, it's not just the problem of the company that you're serving. It's the problem of that person, and humanizing that customer as a human being, and the stress they're under.
100%.
Because your customers, I mean, if don't know PagerDuty, your customers are using you in intense situations, when there's an outage, when there's a maintenance window, and that's very stressful. And I think that's something a lot of people miss. They think of a customer as a company, not as a collection of human beings.
Exactly. And it's been especially true during COVID, because so many of our enterprise customers, especially, and a lot of our SMB customers, had to transition from being true brick and mortar businesses to becoming digital businesses overnight, because that was the only way to survive. So our users have become the digital front lines. They're working an extra 10 to 15 hours a week because of the pandemic.
Wow.
We're seeing an increase in up to 40% of incidents on our platform. Some customers that are seeing 50x the number of incidents. And yet the teams on the platform are resolving those incidents 20% faster, which I think is a great tribute to how innovative our customers are and how they're using technology to solve problems faster. But when you lose sight of the human on the other end of your software, you lose the long game. And I think the thing we all have to remember is consumers are very savvy, and consumers are your customers at the end of the day. So if your applications don't work as well as the ride share, the food delivery, the live streaming, entertainment apps, you're not going to be successful long term with business customers.
I love it. That's so well said. And that's kind of the biggest trend I've seen since COVID, is companies saying this whole concept of customer success needs to be built into the experience. It's not just about making that executive sponsor happy. That's super important. And I'm sure you do a lot of that, and we do a lot of that, but it's really building it into your product, building into the way you engage digitally, so that every user that's touching your software is having a great experience. And I think that's something, honestly, PagerDuty's done from the beginning, because your model has been kind of bottoms up, right? You were serving users before their corporations even knew about it, I think, if I remember.
Oh, totally. And that's still the case. I mean, we started out as developers building applications that solve problems for developers, real painful ones. And that is a part of our heritage we continue to embrace and develop.
That's awesome. Well, I always like to close out with kind of a lightning round, because we've had this great conversation about driving success for the community, for teammates, for customers, and in that process, building great businesses that stand the test of time. So my lightning round is a quick word association, just the first thing that comes to mind for some terms I'll throw out that I'm sure are very present for you. First one is digital transformation.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. And your PagerDuty is behind a lot of that. COVID-19.
Painful.
Painful, for sure, for everyone. Customer success.
Mission critical.
Mission critical. No, I appreciate that. And then human first.
Human first. I mean, everything. Like, what's the point if you're not making a human feel better, look smarter, get more done? Like, it's everything.
I totally agree with you. It's everything. What a good way to close out. Well, Jen, it's always awesome to see you. I learned a lot myself today, and I'm sure the audience did as well. And really appreciate the time today. And for the folks watching, we'll have another one of these next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It went so fast because it's so fun to hang out with you. And I hope you and the Gainsight team are all doing really well. Thank you so much for your support.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.